Vivid Whisper presents Whisperling, Episode 3, Experimental Heroics. On Monday, Quinn came to school in her finest trench coat and most mysterious hat to begin the snooping operation. It was just after first period when Spark poked out from her bag to talk.
You're not gonna like this.
Give it to me straight.
Oh, are we doing a thing? Sure. Wasn't much to find. Place was cleaned out. But I know where they set the fire.
Where?
Elementary, my dear Quinn. The first thing I did was I took a look at the scorch marks all around the walls and floor. Then I thought, if I were an arsonist, where would I start a fire? And I ran through a bunch of scenarios in my head. And then I noticed there was no trash can in the entire bathroom. Someone removed it, so it must have been there. Case closed.
Okay, Sherlock.
Hey, it's something, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. Nothing else?
Sorry. Just a bunch of scorch marks. As I said, I think they cleared it out.
Okay. Well, thanks anyway.
At lunch, she shared her breakthrough findings with the newly founded detective agency.
Well, that's disappointing.
No, it's our first real clue. The fire was set in the trash can.
Sure, but what does that tell us?
That someone could walk in on the arsonist doing it? Less privacy than in a stall.
So they're a thrill seeker.
That's something.
That an arsonist might deliberately do dangerous things.
So what you're saying is we're really good at this.
Wait, but there's a difference between setting a fire somewhere and setting it somewhere that someone could see you. Maybe he wanted to be seen.
Why would he want that?
Or maybe it was just an accident.
It wasn't.
Are you sure?
You ever see a cigarette fire that leaves scorch marks everywhere?
I've never seen a cigarette fire at all.
Me neither. But I don't think it would. He probably spread the trash around before setting it on fire or something.
They started debating theories, but didn't get anywhere. They were stuck, and, much to Jen's dismay, that meant they were forced to wait to see what happened next. A week later, the monster returned. The attack was even more devastating than before. Without even the mild deterrence provided by the puppet creature and its firecracker weapon, the steel monster could take what it wanted. Quinn spent the attack face down on her bed, covering her head with a pillow.
Quinn?
Quinn and Spark were playing checkers when Andrea peeked in.
Hi, Mom. Hey, Quinn, I've got your dad here.
Andrea opened the door to reveal she was carrying a glass of wine and her laptop, open to a video call with Quinn's father, Sam.
Ah, Dad, hi!
Quinn, so good to see you. How are you?
Okay.
Playing checkers against yourself?
Yeah,
Are you winning?
I am.
No, you're not.
Spark protested, so Quinn subtly reached her hand out and pushed playfully on his face. He rolled his eyes, but joined Quinn on the bed when she sat with the laptop.
We were just talking about the fire. Who isn't? Why haven't they caught him yet?
Maybe they're doing a sting operation.
Honey,
Or maybe it was an inside job.
you too. I'm serious. I'm worried it's going to happen again.
I know. Let's not focus on that, though. Other than that, Quinn, how's school?
Oh, aside from someone setting it on fire?
Yeah, I know. How was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? But come on.
Well, take that out of the equation and it's exactly as boring as ever, I guess.
How was the, Did you have that field trip yet?
The museum? No, that's next Friday.
Oh, damn. I was sure I'd get it right this time. Well, have fun next Friday.
I'll give you two a couple minutes alone.
Thanks, honey.
Thanks, Mom. So when are you coming home?
Soon. As soon as I can. I promise.
Not good enough.
I don't want to tell you a date because it might change, and then I'll have lied to you.
Again.
Yes, again.
Do it anyway.
Okay. 3 months. Mid-July. 8 weeks later than we thought before.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to spend another week in bed if that's what you're afraid of.
I know you said it wasn't related, but...
It wasn't!
But when you tell your daughter you're going to miss her birthday, and for the next week she can't get out of bed, and we still aren't sure why, you can't blame me for worrying.
I'll survive.
You always do. Now, we haven't had a chance to talk since that email you sent me.
Oh, it's not that big a deal.
You don't believe that.
It's
a big deal, Quinn. It's absurd that people would blame Jen. I'm glad you told me about it. Now I have a couple more questions.
Do I have to answer them?
Maybe. At least some of them.
Fine.
You asked me not to tell Mom, so I won't. But why not?
Last time with Steven and Jen, she made a big deal out of it. She started freaking out, and it just made things worse. Bringing parents into the situation just makes things worse.
Ah, so you tell your father who's 7,000 miles away?
Quinn shrugged.
Pragmatic as always. But listen, I need you to understand, this isn't normal bullying. This is much more serious.
And it wasn't before?
No, it was, of course. But this... Jen is a really smart kid, and things are going to be tough for her no matter what. You told me she was being considered for that accelerated something program, right? That can't be sabotaged by some... Your mom is out of the room, right?
Yes.
By some asshole who thinks she's an arsonist just because he has beef with her being trans or whatever.
Not making me any less worried about it, Dad.
Right. Sorry. Look, as your father, I'm going to be the voice of reason, which I know not what I'm best at. What I really wanted to say was that this vigilante investigator deal you have going on, while undoubtedly awesome and the single most you idea I've ever heard, is not a good idea. I love that you feel like you want to step up and do something to save the world. I get it. And I've always loved that about you. I do it too. I mean, clearly. But listen, you don't need to find the real arsonist. The three of you just need to keep your heads down. Jen didn't do anything. Pretty soon people will figure that out. Escalating whatever is going on with Steven, hanging out around the burned out bathrooms is just going to get you into more trouble. You understand?
Yeah.
You're going to completely disregard all of that, aren't you?
Maybe?
Alright, screw it. It felt hypocritical anyway. Tell me more about this detective agency you've put together.
Quinn grinned and filled him in on the details of the burned-out bathroom, the way people had been staring at Jen, and Steven's increasingly presumptuous taunts.
Alright, look. I know, basically, you'll do whatever you want. Just remember that this arsonist is clearly dangerous. I don't want any of you putting yourselves in danger, no matter what Jen tells you. Deal?
Okay.
I want you to promise me that if at any point you learn anything, or even just start feeling like you're close to something, and especially if you feel unsafe, you'll tell an adult. Promise?
I promise.
Okay. I trust you.
I'm just worried about the bullying. I don't know how to deal with Steven when he pounces on us. I get scared and then I can't say anything, while Jen stands up to him.
Alright. Here's what I got. Bullies, whether they're middle school jerks or leaders of nations, bully because they're scared of feeling small. But whereas you do the smart thing and hide when you're scared, bullies like Steven compensate with taunts and insults.
Okay.
But there are other ways to deal with fear. Fear is one of the reasons we soldiers do so many of those discipline exercises, so that if we get frightened, we have something to fall back on. Jen, I guarantee you, is on some level just as scared of Steven as you are, and as he is of her. All that is to say, being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway.
Yes, I know, but how?
This isn't going to be helpful, but you kind of just do.
Oh, come on.
Sorry. It takes deep breaths and practice. Do the right thing in the face of fear. That's all the advice I can really give you.
As time began to run out, Sam convinced Quinn to let him hang up and go to sleep.
Don't you have homework to do?
Nope. None at all. They banned homework.
Right. Sure they did.
Eventually, they hung up. Quinn gave the laptop back to Andrea and returned to her room. She found Spark sitting on the windowsill and jumped back onto her bed. Spark joined her.
Miss him.
Yeah.
What he said made sense, though. Does it change anything for us?
I'm not sure yet.
On Monday, Quinn and Jen sat in math class. Jen had shown up late and was lazily copying down the notes from the board as Quinn finished her worksheet. The two sat straight up and looked at each other. The whole class erupted not with groans but with murmurs. They stood up to line at the door.
Maybe it's just a drill. Or someone could have pulled it as a prank.
Sure.
I'm going.
Wait, what? No, don't.
Spark hopped off the windowsill and disappeared into the crowd. Quinn tried to grab him, but he was gone. Once the class got outside, Quinn's hopes that it was a drill went up in the smoke that rose from the 5th floor window. Jen and Quinn stood in stony silence, filtering out the voices of their classmates. The whispers didn't cease as they waited for the fire department and eventually filed back inside. An announcement came over the PA system.
The fire department has determined that all floors but the 5th are safe to continue classes. All students with classes on the 5th floor, please report to the auditorium where you'll meet your teachers and proceed to another assigned room.
As Quinn walked back to her class, she opened her bag and addressed the fox doll inside.
Spark, are you there?
Over here.
Quinn turned to find him trotting down the hallway, holding a piece of paper in his mouth. His orange gold fur was covered in soot, turning him a deathly shade of gray.
Oh boy. Do not go up there.
Oh my god, Spark.
Look what I found.
He hopped up into her locker, and Quinn, making sure no one was watching, took the sheet of paper from his mouth.
Don't do that.
I was careful.
Careful, you ran into a fire.
A little one. I wanted to get there before they had a chance to clean up. Look, first sign of danger, I would have hopped right back to you.
As if for demonstration, he disappeared. Quinn looked back into her bag, where his head now stuck out from the fox plush. He was back to his normal color.
See? Just like that. All better.
He hopped back into the locker and pawed at the piece of paper, and Quinn unfolded it. It was a news article, printed haphazardly as if directly from a browser, complete with links and banner ads in the margins.
At least 50 people killed in airstrike, car bombing in Afghanistan. What the hell? This was just a couple of days ago. That a U.S. drone strike purportedly targeting IS militants could instead result in the deaths of scores of farmers is unacceptable and suggests a shocking disregard for civilian life, said the director of the Security with Human Rights program at etc. Someone circled that part.
Where did it happen?
It just says Eastern Afghanistan. That's not where Dad is. I think.
Also, we know about it by now. The article was taped to the wall by the bathroom trash can, which was on fire, by the way. We got that one right.
Good to know. Did you notice anything else?
Yes. It smelled bad, like gasoline.
Gasoline? He set the fires with gasoline.
Someone turned and gave Quinn a weird look.
Yes, I'm certain.
Oh my god. Whoever this is, they take it more seriously than we thought.
At lunch, Dominic and Quinn sat alone.
Do you think she's okay?
I don't know.
Dominic was holding the article in his hand. He turned it over, but there was nothing on the back.
I bet it's a statement.
What do you mean?
It's like a declaration. Some sort of message he wants to get across. Maybe the gas is part of it too. Here, we maybe shouldn't flash it around.
What sort of message?
Hello.
They looked up to see a boy Quinn didn't recognize, shyly standing next to their table, black sweater complementing the black hair that came down around his neck. Quinn folded the article again.
Hi.
Hi. She normally sits here, right?
Who, Jen?
The girl with the green hair. Jenna Corbin?
Corvin. Yeah, that's Jen.
Where is she?
We don't know.
Oh.
Why?
I just wanted to ask her something.
She hasn't been starting the fires.
I didn't say that.
Good. Because it's not her.
Okay.
Then what do you want?
I don't think she did it. I just wanted to say that. Everyone making this about her is being stupid.
Oh. Okay, yeah, we agree.
That's all.
The boy stood awkwardly for a few seconds before drifting away.
Do you know that guy?
No. I think I have a class with him, though.
Well, at least that's one person who doesn't think it was Jen.
Dominic and Quinn didn't talk much over lunch, and it wasn't until after school that they saw Jen again.
Oh, good. I was afraid you'd been kidnapped.
Oh, I was. I had to chew through my handcuffs to get free.
They didn't even bother to gag you? Amateurs.
Right?
Wait, Jen, what did happen? Why were you at lunch?
Fine. They called me to the principal's office again. Don't worry, they still have nothing, but they obviously think it's me. Apparently Miss Park thought it was suspicious I'd show up late to class the same time the fire was discovered. We better hurry up and figure out who did it.
The three parted as they rode their bikes home, and Quinn was left alone with her thoughts. Quinn and Spark rode home in silence. Gnomes were rebuilding ardor as quickly as they could. The street was quieter than usual. Quinn parked her bike, walked to her room, and threw herself onto the bed without giving more than a passing hi to Andrea.
And so, because it wasn't enough that we have to worry about an enormous metal bird attacking, now we also have a serial arsonist.
Which is even worse than a normal arsonist.
It is! How are we supposed to stop the monster and the arsonist? I have no idea what to do about either of them.
We have a clue about the fire. We have that article. And the gas thing.
Yeah, we do. But what does it mean? Dominic may have been right. It seems like a statement. Just...
Had you heard about that before? The article, I mean.
The bombing? No, I had no idea. Mom would have told us about it if it were near Dad, right? Or he would have.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hate this so much. I feel so trapped, just cowering here, being scared.
Me too. Think about what your dad said, though. You can do the right thing, even when you're scared.
Yeah. Like him.
Exactly.
That night, the monster attacked again. Spark disappeared, and Quinn tensed as soon as they heard it, but Quinn resisted the urge to take cover under her sheets and pillows. Instead, she crept to the windowsill.
Where are you going?
She put her arms on the windowsill and forced herself to look out at the monster. Just as big, fast, and confusing as before. Too many wings to count. A whirling hurricane of cables lashing and snapping like lightning strikes. Even before the beast arrived, the people of Ardor were jumping into action. Or panicking, to be more accurate. The monster landed 3 houses down this time, covering up the huts that still stood there. Quinn winced, but forced herself to watch. Eventually, Spark joined her, putting his paws on the windowsill to watch too. Quinn started as something fell from her roof right past her window. She strained to see what it was. The bushes by her house shook, and the wooden puppet creature climbed out of them, except it wasn't tied to a splint. In fact, it looked in perfect condition. What was it doing? Attack! The shout startled Quinn. It seemed to have come from directly above her. She and Spark shared a look.
Did you hear?
Quinn nodded. She strained to look up this time and saw not just one, but an avalanche of wooden cylinder puppet creatures leaping off her roof, streaming down into her yard. They cushioned their fall with the bushes and streamed outward, leaping over the fence around the tree. There were more than she could count. The yard was filled with them, and they were still coming. Even more came pouring down from the houses next to hers. There must have been 1,000 of the things, each perfectly identical, made of smooth wooden cylinders with some sort of contraption attached to their left arms. Most were sprinting in the direction of the metal monster, but others climbed into trees, hid behind fences, or got into formation along the street. The whole thing was amazingly coordinated. Quinn and Spark did their best to look down the street, but couldn't see the monster. They thought the puppets had begun firing at it with their little contraptions. It took off and drove toward them. It crashed into the street, smashing through 30 of the puppet creatures before lifting off again. The monster stuck its head up and stared at Quinn's house, then rocketed suddenly straight into the air as if startled. Its eyes flared orange as a man leapt from the roof of the house, cleared the entire yard, and grabbed onto one of the metal cables that hung from the beast. The man, if that's what he was easily 8 feet tall and dressed head to toe in armor Quinn couldn't quite make out in the darkness. What struck Quinn the most, though, was his right arm, enveloped in a bronze mechanism that made his arm look oversized for his already ridiculous stature. It was with this bronze-armored machine he held on to the creature's cables as if in a whirlwind, as it tried its best to shake him off. But, one hand at a time, he climbed the beast, moving steadily to its head. The monster was flying in circles now. It quickly reversed direction, but he held on. It plunged to the street, and Quinn gasped as it tried to crush the man beneath its incredible weight. He jumped, grabbing onto the edge of the porthole that made up the creature's eye. He held up his right arm, and the contraption there began to move. It buzzed and whirred and unfolded from his arm until it had folded into an implausibly large sword. Quinn stared wide-eyed as he shifted his legs and braced himself with a cable to stand on the creature's head and swung the massive sword into its skull.
You shall fight this land no longer!
The blade bounced off, almost knocking him loose. It spun in another whirlwind, but he held tight, bringing the blade down again and again.
I shall end your reign of terror!
It was incredible to watch. Quinn had never seen anyone do anything so recklessly brave. The sword lodged in the creature's head as it once more plunged to the ground. This time, the man wasn't quick enough to pull his sword out, and he struck the pavement. His armor produced sparks as he skidded along, blade still attached. The puppets kept firing as the monster swept upward, looking down the street where the man now lay. His sword folded up again as he got on his feet. Quinn glanced down and happened to see a small family of gnomes, panicked, running across her lawn. Were they hoping they'd be able to hide in the bushes? In a split-second decision she was barely conscious of making, Quinn took a deep breath and jumped onto the windowsill.
Where are you?
Hey!
Do the right thing in the face of fear. She opened the window in one huge pull and called down to the panicked gnomes.
Hey! In here!
Thankfully, the gnomes understood her and started hurrying up the ladder. They climbed as quickly as they could, but
Look out!
the beast came out of nowhere and smashed into Quinn's house right below her window. The impact knocked her down on top of Spark, who disappeared immediately. She scrambled to her feet and came face to face with the monster, its burning eyes staring directly at her. She whimpered and fell to her bedroom floor. Cables burst in through the window like tentacles, and she screamed, scrambling behind the bed. Quinn thought she heard the monster take off again, but wasn't sure. She didn't dare look.
Close the damn window!
This time she looked. The creature was flying again, and the man was once again clinging to its cables. She didn't wait and sprinted to the window, jumped back on the windowsill, and shut it as quickly as she could. She looked down and saw the ladder to her window snapped in half on the ground. She couldn't see the gnomes anywhere. The monster again shook the man off after a particularly hard blow and rocketed again into the air. This time it hovered for a few seconds before turning tail and flying away. The fairies of Ardor emerged from their hiding places and began to applaud as the men bowed magnanimously. The puppets got into something resembling military formation as Blue Bulb shook the man's index finger through the enormous metal contraption. The giant man turned and shot a look towards Quinn, who ducked under the windowsill. Spark, who had finally re-emerged, joined her.
I don't... What the hell just happened? Who is that?
The two sat in silence for a while before Quinn crawled back into bed. Whoever that man was, he could wait. Till morning. Or later.
Quinn, time for school.
When Quinn looked out her window, she was almost surprised to see the man still standing on the street. He really did look human, except for being so tall. He was talking to the gnomes, giving instructions to the army of puppet creatures, and generally walking around like he owned the place. In the daylight, she got a better look at his armor. A slapdash collection of armor pieces from a knight, a samurai, a modern combat uniform, and several other pieces she didn't recognize. The anachronistic suits of armor were all patched together, each a different color. He looked ridiculous. As she left her house to get her bike, she got a better look at him. In the daylight, there were details of his face she hadn't noticed in the frenzy. One of his eyes looked like a machine, much like the device he carried on his right shoulder. He also looked younger than she had thought before. She rode away from him the gnomes he was speaking to towards her school. She thought he hadn't noticed her.
Hey!
Quinn recoiled in surprise. The fairies all knew not to expect her to respond in the mornings. Pretending to be walking around talking to yourself is hard when you really should be going to school. Apparently the man didn't get the memo. Quinn was even more alarmed to find him running after her.
Hey, you! You can see us, right?
She pedaled faster. She saw the puppet creatures standing all along the pavement, and for a moment she was afraid they were going to pounce on her and hold her for questioning. They did not, and eventually the enormous man got the hint and turned back.
Wow. He really wanted to talk to us.
I don't want to know what he wanted.
Why? He looks like a good guy, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, but
What?
I was stupid.
What? You mean opening the window? You were trying to save those gnomes.
And because of me,
Quinn sat through school, which managed to go an entire 7 hours without catching fire, but her mind kept rushing back to that moment. The gnomes disappearing in a storm of steel, the monster's stare, the torrent of metal cables reaching toward her from the window. How would that ruthless warrior, whoever he was, react to someone who, in a moment of stupidity, had gotten 2 gnomes killed and risked her own life to boot? At the end of the day, she dreaded heading home, and was even considering asking to sleep over at Dominic's house again, but Spark talked her out of it.
I mean, we've got to go home eventually, right?
It was a good point. Still, as she saw the puppet creatures standing all around her neighborhood, and as she turned the corner to her street and saw the man ordering them around, she had to breathe deeply not to turn around and pedal away. She rode straight to her house, keeping her head down, and hoped nobody would notice her.
Hey, you!
She flinched, but turned to face the man as he hopped easily over her fence and walked right up to her. He was almost twice her height, and so as he approached, Quinn's gaze was forced upward.
I'm sorry I was so rude this morning. I've never met a Whisperling before. I wasn't thinking.
Quinn had no idea what that meant.
That's okay.
I'd like to talk to you, though. Is now a good time?
Staring this closely at the machine on his shoulder, Quinn could see the blade that folded out to a sword taller than she was.
I guess so?
Wonderful!
As he got near to her, he kneeled and reached out an enormous hand. His armor was still ridiculous, but he managed to look heroic nonetheless. She was struck at how young he seemed. He couldn't have been much more than 30.
Your name is Ms. Quinn, yes? I asked Mayor Bluebulb about you.
Just Quinn.
Nice to meet you, Quinn. Call me the Colonel.
Nice to meet you.
I didn't expect you to open the window last night. I didn't know there were any Whisperlings around here. I was, as you can imagine, distracted with the fight.
Yeah.
Plus, I think I was pretty dazed at that point, having just been slammed into the ground. Oh, and what is your name?
Spark.
Nice to meet you, Spark.
Sorry, wait, I'm confused. Who are you? Why are you called the Colonel? What are you doing here?
Oh, I guess I never explained that, did I? Pardon me, I've been explaining it over and over all day, and after I answer it, they always ask about my toy soldiers, and then I have to explain... Anyway, my name, as I said, is the Colonel. You can call me Colonel.
What else would
The dragon that's been giving you problems is called Scarsteel. I've been hunting it for months now. One of my toy soldier scouts told me it was around here, so I came as quickly as I could. Took me a little longer than I'd hoped, but no matter. Until I'm able to take care of it, I will be staying here to help defend this fine town. Pro bono, of course. Now, does that answer all your questions?
Did you say dragon?
Oh, yes! Congratulations! You're one of the very few to see one in decades! Even for a veteran monster slayer like myself, a dragon is something special.
You seem to be enjoying this.
Oh, I'm being insensitive, aren't I? Happens sometimes. Thank you for calling me out on it. Very brave of you to call out the rudeness of a stranger twice your height carrying a weapon that weighs more than either of us. Speaking of which, you, Window, very brave.
Brave?
Did I say something wrong?
I thought you were going to be mad.
Why would I be mad at you? I just met you.
I got those gnomes
What?
killed.
What? No! Well, sort of, maybe. We don't know they're dead, but yeah, they're probably dead. The point is, this is war. Look, what you did, it didn't go how you hoped. We can agree on that. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. If you're willing to do it again, preferably before Scarsteel has arrived, your room would provide better shelter than anything the gnomes would be able to do themselves. That's why I made it a priority to fix your ladder.
Quinn looked back at the ladder, and it was right back where it had been the previous day. She couldn't even tell it had been damaged.
Don't worry, no one saw us doing it. You, Quinn, have a very important role to play in the coming battle. I can fight Scarsteel, but there's only so much I can do to protect its victims, and ultimately, that's just as important. Will you aid me in this?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes! Yes! I will. I will help. I'll help you keep the town safe. Thank you.